You're listening to SEEK Bytes, a podcast for software engineers by software engineers. Today's podcast hosts are me, Seamus, with Will and Rahul, talking about our unique pathways into software development, the challenges we faced, and the ways we continue to learn today. Stick around to the end to hear about specific learning resources and strategies that we recommend and what we would change if we could do it all again. Welcome back. Thanks for listening to another episode of the SEEK Bytes Engineering Podcast. I'm your host, Seamus, here with Will.
Hello.
And Rahul.
Hey guys.
Today we're going to be talking a little bit about career path, history, learning pathways, just talking a little bit about our own experiences, getting into the industry, and a little bit about how we maintain our ongoing and endless growth, as is necessary in software development, to always be on the continual learning grind. I feel like I have talked about my own on the podcast before. I'm interested to hear what your history is, Rahul. How did you get started?
My history would sound super conventional. So I went to uni, then I went to do my master's, kept doing tech. But if you go into details, I started off with a degree in computer technology. This is year 2000. And the dot-com bubble or all that kind of stuff was still happening and everyone was getting rich. But the internet wasn't fast enough at that point, and the information came very slowly, especially as a kid in India.
You talk about people getting rich in the dot-com boom. It reminds me of, I don't know if both of you remember this, but there was a young guy who created a website that was just like a static page, a certain amount of pixels, and he would sell pixel real estate, basically. So I don't think the website had any dynamicness, any scrolling or anything like that. And it was basically a digital billboard. And the first few ads were like, I don't know, just random mum and pop shops, that kind of thing. But as it grew, it became notorious, like infamous almost. And then I think like McDonald's and Nike and other big brands were like, we need to get a little bit of the real estate on this board. And it was just like a amalgamation of stuff. But imagine if that's your story for getting into the industry. It's like, I made the first digital billboard and at first sold for $1 a pixel or something and ended up selling for millions of dollars for like a 24 by 24 block.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, please continue.
Yeah. So computer technology in my time meant you did 80% of hardware stuff. So you're learning assembly programming, you're learning different processor architectures and things like that, and building compilers and things like that. So really either close to metal kind of software, or it was like all complex, like building lexers, compilers, and things like that. And there were a few courses, like 2-3 courses, either data structures one, programming in C, programming in C++. Well, back in the day, I just learned C and then learned the class keyword and put all my C code inside a class, and that became C++ in my first few attempts at doing object-oriented programming. And from there, when I graduated, the internet started picking up, and we would see these like websites like MySpace and things like that. And like, I finished a 4-year degree, but I don't know how to build this thing. I could see myself building, like say, a library in Windows or a Linux linker or something like that. But as a product, when I use things, I just didn't know how to do it. So I did a few courses here and there outside, like at academies or whatever they were called back in the day. And then I realized that there's like a lot more that I need to do to be employable. So my foundations were fine, but I wasn't employable because people don't want...
Employable in like the web world?
Yeah.
Or, okay, right.
Even let's say thick clients like Windows applications or things like that. I didn't know how to build any of that stuff.
Ah, interesting.
So I was building things like, how do you do like file traversal and things like that. And these were solved problems, right? So most times you get employed to build things that are not solved yet. And whatever I was seeing, I didn't know how to build it. So I did a course, I did an internship, and just didn't feel right. So thought of doing a master's degree. And there I picked software engineering and distributed computing as my majors and minors, and that's where I learned all the web stuff that solidified what I had learned already. markup and HTML. You can imagine, like, I had one chapter dedicated to HTML in my entire 4-year program. So I didn't even know how to make web pages, like, after completing 4 years.
Wow. So how long was that journey, 4 years? Or it sounded like you did some study before that as well?
Before that, I was building, like, little games and stuff for
Right, okay.
terminal and terminal-based games or text-based games or things like that. But when I saw the web in its full glory considering it was 2002 or something,
Yeah.
MySpace and, like, Orkut and all those, like, social, oh my God, this, like, things refresh, like, my friend can send a message from the other computer and then it just shows up here, this is amazing, and
Yep.
send pictures. Because high tech for me before that was like an IRC channel or something.
Mm-hmm.
That was high tech, like people sending messages just text based, yelling at each other.
Right, yeah, which we haven't really evolved far from.
Still captivating newcomers to the tech world everywhere, right?
Yeah, 4 years. Yeah, that's a while. How long did you went to uni, didn't you, Seamus?
Yeah, I started like later. I didn't really know what I was going to do, so I didn't go to uni until I was 25. When I started, I originally moved down to Victoria to study animation and games because I wanted to get in the games industry. And then sort of when picking my first subjects, I just saw that there was a lot of overlap between computer science and the degree that I was doing, the games dev degree that I was doing. And I really liked the challenge that computer science presented, but I was never someone who thought I'd be able to study those topics. I was never really good at math in school. I wasn't really a great student. I was when I was younger, but not as I got older towards the end of high school. But yeah, I think coming through the end of the degree, I feel better for having attempted to do the challenge. I always thought that I was, because I worked in IT before I started out in computer science, in software dev. I always thought of myself as one of those get into the industry without a degree kind of people. So I kind of like jumped the fence and now I'm in the other camp, which is a weird place to be. What about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I've come from the different side. Didn't go to uni, didn't get any formal training, all kind of self-taught. So yeah, it was interesting when you said like you were working on these, hardware systems and wondering how people make websites. I guess I've come from the other side. I've made websites and looking at how someone makes hardware, I'm like, how does that work? How does it fit together? Which I guess, sometimes it makes me feel like a fake engineer saying like, oh yeah, I'm an engineer. But it's like, I make websites but I feel like there's a whole world of engineering out there, like games and hardware. And there's such a huge world. And actually one of my friends is like just doing a course in just general engineering. They can pick what path they want to take, and I feel like that's like gives you so many doors open, but it's also kind of hard to pick one.
I feel like we're in this, I mean, I say unprecedented. It feels unprecedented for me for where I am at with my age and my career and whatnot. But I imagine if I was 15 now, thinking about like what subjects I'm picking in high school, my last couple of years before I might go off to uni or whatever, the sheer access to information that's digestible is unreal. We didn't have anything like what we have. Like YouTube was coming out towards the end of high school. Like I was pretty much done with high school when YouTube, the year after high school I was working in IT. Yep. And I remember having to use YouTube because some kids had uploaded some nefarious stuff on there and we were using that to like, prove that they'd done it basically. So yeah, we didn't have access to information the way that we do now. If I was 15 and someone said you could just go on YouTube and learn how to code and build the thing that you've got in your mind, what's stopping you? It's like back in the day, you had to have access to a library, right? Like way back, you had to have access to a library to get access to the information, but you don't anymore. So why go to uni? Like I saw someone, doesn't matter who it was, someone who's big in tech in America, a young fellow, he's like 18, 19 or something. He said, I'm not going to go to uni and get a degree. You can study all of MIT's degree online. It's free. It's open source. They publish all their courses. You can go into their campus and watch their lectures and participate in the lecture for free. Why would you pay for a degree? It's hard to disagree with that.
I think access to information is definitely the point that I was trying to make when I said like the internet was slow, and like that plays a big part. Like if that MIT course took 6 days to download, you're not going to finish that course.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think, I don't think there's a right way or the wrong way. Eventually, what's required to do your job as a software engineer comes out to be pretty much similar. How you attain those skills and knowledge could be different.
Yeah, and but I think also access to information isn't just enough to get someone to like. You can take a free course, or even do part-time online courses.
Yeah.
But a lot of people won't finish them, or take so long to finish them. Like it's not just, particularly in my pathway, not going to uni. Like just having information out there isn't enough. You need to have to want to do it.
Access 100%. To a gym doesn't guarantee a six-pack.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah, you buy yourself some weights doesn't mean you're actually going to work out at home.
There is no replacement for perseverance. There is no replacement for hard work. Because when I went to uni or for my master's degree, I took some courses which required me to struggle, basically. Because if you came from a CS, which is like more software heavy background, some things were natural. But if you were
computer science?
Computer science versus computer tech, which was like more hardware focused, my undergraduate course. So things like distributed computing wasn't natural to me. But I took that as one of my majors. And so just to get to the same playing field, I had to like learn up and be focused, and so that I can at least get some decent grade and compete with the rest in my class. I think that competitive edge or that competitive feeling also drives some people. So if you're doing a course by your own, you're competing against yourself. That's also awesome. But so when you see, man, that guy can, by the time the professor finished explaining something, there was a guy in my class who finished coding it. And when you're competing against people like that, you take yourself to the next level. It's like, I should be able to do that.
These are really good points, because I'm someone who's competitive, and I do think that I benefited a lot from that. Just seeing, the people in the lecture halls who put their arms up and they've got a question that's really detailed and deep. They've clearly read the textbook. They clearly understand the topic before the lecturer is actually sharing the information with us. It's that egotistical, jealousy, envy, whatever it is, you want to be smart, like you want to be perceived as capable, right? So yeah, that kind of environment definitely did push me to achieve more than I might have, definitely achieve more than I would have if I was just at home studying. I know this for a fact because I tried to start an online degree when I was like 18, 19, and I got one subject in and finished and was like, I don't want to do this. It's so demotivating just sitting by yourself at home learning. So yeah, 100%. Having like a structured coursework with goalposts all the way along, segmented out like every 6 months, assignments you need to complete, other people who are doing the same things as you who are getting graded. All these things are levers to help motivate you to work harder. Just having access to the information is not going to get there. Yeah. Those are really good points.
Yeah, and I think the last point I would like to make is that if you can build a relationship with your teacher or a mentor, that's golden. Because sometimes I felt like when I did courses online on these platforms, there's like a panel where you post your question and then you get an answer back. So there's a bit of delay. There's maybe you have follow-up questions, then there's another delay. But when, say, you have like a 30-minute office hour session with a professor, then you can feed into that question and answer flow much more organically. And let's say my professor detected that, I don't come from the same kind of background, like the computer science background. So he approached the same problem in slightly different way. Then he would like, hey, you should have known this in your 4-year degree. Why don't you know this? Because I didn't do that course.
Yeah. I do find like that face-to-face, whether it's something that helps you, compete, or kind of, you can compare yourself to other people, you can kind of see it. But I think even in a non-uni setting, like for myself, I found that just because I got most of my experience just working somewhere. And not to discount online learning, I think it's amazing. I think the fact that we can, do courses online, essentially uni online, is amazing. It's so much more accessible. But I think I would typically, if there was an option between face-to-face and online, like doing face-to-face learning, whether that is like in-class uni or just like learning on the job, which is what I did a lot of my stuff, like you still get that competition. You're working with other devs who are, stronger than you, and just like that helps even now, just like trying to push yourself up a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point to make, is that everyone, you sort of said this earlier, everyone's individual. you've got to figure out what works for you. Like we could go deeper at some point, probably in a future episode, about the different styles of learning, kinesthetic learning, that kind of thing. Everyone's got their own style that they the most receptive to. If anyone was asking me for advice around what approach to get into the industry, my advice is always like it has to be kind of crafted to you. If you're very self-motivated and you're like great at time management and you like listing and you like creating your own goals and structuring your own, way to achieve your own goals, you very much could be the kind of person that can just jump on freecodecamp.org or something like that and do a course, get a certificate out of it, not have to pay anything. You could do that 3, 4, 5 times in a year, build a project, and at the end of that year be entirely employable as an entry-level developer. But if you're not someone who gets motivated by those things, maybe you need to do a course that's a bit more direct and structured where you pay money. So there's consequences if you fail. You've paid money for it. Each to their own.
Yeah, interesting you talk about money, because that's one point I wanted to make. Unfortunately, to attain degrees, most countries, there's like money aspect to it. Imagine a world, or you just lived in a country where going to uni didn't cost anything. And you could still be interning or working full-time, part-time, something. Would your perspective change? I worked with a few engineers in their countries. Education was free. So this guy, 27-year-old, has a PhD already. In search and indexing, it was his first job. This was with another team that I was working with, and they took care of all the search infrastructure. And I was amazed because fresh out of no professional experience, but knew ins and out of search, which is pretty complex. And he was one of the best devs on that team.
Yeah, I think anyone who has, dabbled into the, touching on some political topic like socialist, Marxist ideologies and, universal basic income, those kinds of things, would probably be aware that in an environment where people are given access to information and abundant time to do what they want with their time and grow as they wish, a lot of people actually don't like to sit around and do nothing, and they will just learn. So access to free information where you can go and study something. And I think how many people out there who could have been brain surgeons or rocket scientists or leading politicians who didn't because they had to stay at home and look after their siblings or something like that. And not because they wouldn't have studied if they had access to a university or anything like that, or if they had time. It's not the issue of time. They would make time. It's that the cost of that education is so high that they can't justify doing it while also taking care of their other responsibilities.
Yeah, that's why I'm always thankful for my parents. They invested in me in doing 2 degrees. I didn't take aid for the entire period of my master's degree from my parents, but I was able to work it out with my internships and things like that. But 4 years of engineering, bachelor's degree, then a master's. Always grateful.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to swing back around to kind of the getting a job as an entry-level software engineer. Because, Rahul, you said you did 4 years of, uni. Did you then do an entry-level job, or did you start? Yeah,
I did an entry-level job. And so my experience with working with hardware was always met with fumes and smoke. So if the code is wrong, the motherboard blows up, you're going to have to order a new one or sit there soldering stuff, right? So that didn't feel like natural to me. Like my brain worked in a more iterative way. So because of that, I tended to gravitate towards let's get a internship that's like more software driven, even if I'm not the best. And I cracked the interview. Initial couple of months, I was just doing documentation work, which I found extremely boring. But then I didn't know I was gaining information about the system at the same time. And then that's how I learned.
So where do you think the bar is for entry-level jobs? So like, do you think you really have to take a 4-year course to get an entry-level job? Or do you think there was maybe somewhere in that course where you were like, kind of looking back at it now, do you think there was a point during that degree where you probably could have been ready for an entry-level job?
Yeah, I think it depends on the team and the company. Let's say you work for Borland, right? They make compilers. And you don't have a background. For you to ramp up to compilers and stuff, is going to take long time. And imagine you go the web route where the browser is accessible. You can open it up at your home, like right click, view source, and you can see a lot of things and stuff like that. So I think what kind of problems or what kind of company or team you're in, I think the barrier to entry is different. So if there is a company that's producing technology, so let's say the Microsofts, the Amazons, they are creating these like compilers, SDKs, and operating system. There's a different kind of starting point. If you're creating websites, you can do it without any JavaScript, just HTML and CSS. There's a different starting point. You might not even know there's a thing called data structures, and you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Like, there's a massive difference between roles at companies that build new things and roles at companies that aren't recreating the wheel. They're not inventing new things. They're just taking the existing tools that have been built on top of tools, on top of tools, on top of tools, React, TypeScript, etc., and then making existing solved problems even easier to solve even faster. And those kinds of roles, if you're talking about entry-level roles, those are the ones that I think people should be focused on. Unless you're willing to spend 4 or 5 years studying at home, tinkering with your own hardware, paying for hardware, whatever, to get to that point where you have that level of knowledge to build the new, I would probably be directing people towards entry-level roles. When I say entry-level roles, talking about like tech support, UAT, like testing roles, those kinds of things, quality assurance roles where you're still getting your hands on code, you're still, working on resolving bugs, identifying bugs and stuff like that. And then you can step up into development. But this is my naive view from someone who did that in IT, like fixing desktop PCs, moved into network, and then I become a sysadmin and that kind of thing. Like that's the path in from an IT tech perspective, getting into the IT industry. In software, I always imagined it to be similar because I have heard those stories. I've worked with people who are seniors here, who started out as QA people here, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Can I say just try applying? I have a friend who did a bachelor's in physics, of all things. And we weren't so aware back in the day about like where applications of physics would be in the modern times. Now he works for Epic Games because of his physics base, and then he picked up programming. So all the physics engines and things like that, you're also having that, okay, if this ball bounces this much, how much should it deviate after hitting these things? So it may be not a natural thing to a classic CS guy. Like it hits this point, and I don't know, there's no requirements for what it should do next.
Yeah.
Versus a physics guy might think, okay, it hits here. If it has hit, there's like, I don't know, potential energy, or
how heavy is the ball? What's the type of
exactly.
surface has it hit? What's the air temperature? Like, absolutely, how crazy.
Any engine building company like Epic, they're going to have pretty high standards in terms of physics stuff. I remember I used to be in the games industry sort of as an entry, first couple of years in the industry kind of thing. And I was over there for GDC. And when I was there, I spoke to some of the like Epic and whatnot, just asking about their interview process, trying to like get foot in the door, that kind of thing. And pretty much all of them were, you're going to be asked physics questions and you in your interview process. Like the thing that they're going to focus on the most is how strong is your math? And also, do you have an honors? And that was pretty much it. Those two things was, do you have strong math? Do you have an honors degree? Like, have you done a thesis and are you great at maths? That was a straight up, before they even bother interviewing you, it's like, if you can't answer yes to those two questions, then you need to go back.
Yep.
Which is very, very different to Australia. Like, there's so many companies that are massive that you can get a great paying job. And the requirement is like, are you nice? Are you easy to communicate with? Have you got examples of evidence that suggests that you can build stuff?
And that's actually why I kind of brought up the topic of like entry-level jobs, because for me, that's what it was like. When I started, I think I did CSS, HTML, and PHP. That was actually my first sort of things. A little bit of JavaScript, but very, very basic stuff. But I learned, that to an extent, probably within a year, maybe a little bit less than a year. But I was very focused. I was like spending night after night, very late nights, watching videos, courses, downloading books. Like I was very committed to it.
Yeah.
So my first job was just like an entry-level job at they were just making websites for food companies and, small little WordPressy stuff.
Were you building components and things, or were you just doing like...
No. It was just, it was essentially just like WordPress theming.
Add more spaghetti to the spaghetti.
Yeah, it wasn't definitely what I would call like. Look, it's still programming, and there's definitely still
100%.
people who do that for a living. Like, particularly, like WordPress theming can get quite complicated if you're making real custom stuff. I wasn't quite at that level, but that got me into the door, and just that was where I started, and that I found the skills that I needed. I just needed to have the bare minimum. And what they were really looking for was someone who was motivated, someone who could communicate, someone who could, problem solve by themselves. Like for me, getting the basic skills and then just like acing an interview, particularly early on, is kind of what can really help you get the foot in the door. And I'm very lucky to be quite good at interviews. Like I'm quite outgoing. I like to talk. I can kind of present myself well. And I think that is so key in entry-level jobs when they know you're not experienced to code. And a lot of entry-level jobs, they're looking to hire someone who's willing to learn, someone that they can teach and someone they can grow.
Yeah. Chances are that everyone else in the interview has similar level of either education or examples of like hard-fought, hard-won, knowledge that they've gained themselves, that kind of thing. I feel like the thing that makes you stand out the most is your just, I don't want to say charm, but it is just like
I think
how pleasant it is to talk to you. If you can answer the same questions as everybody else, it's going to come down to how nice is it to interact with you.
That, or you actually are just like a God-powered developer.
100%.
Like you can either be just charming and nice and willing to grow and like look like someone who is going to be like a real good fit for the team, or sometimes maybe not quite that amount. I mean, you can't be an asshole, but if you don't quite have the social skills but are just like a God-tier developer, that's usually also probably good too.
No one's expecting engineers to be salespeople, right?
Exactly, yeah.
I think my first interview was pretty candid, and the person interviewing me told me, look, you don't have any skills that we actually can hire you for, but I want to give you a chance. So here's this book called HTML for Dummies, and use this book, go away for 2 weeks and just build your resume in HTML and just bring it over. And one, it needs to work. So I should be able to see something, the resume, the layout, just the way you have it. And walk us through how you built it and how you learned what you learned. And that was the interview process. Because I genuinely go to a company that builds a website and then, I can build this compiler for you.
Yep.
We can't sell anything that you build.
I was going to say before, and that's a good point that you bring up there, good segue. Even if you get a degree, chances are to get into the really good roles that if you're going for the degree route, you're saying, I want to have the ticket in the doorway into the big companies, right?
That's right. That's how I see it as well.
And if you want to pay for that ticket, everyone else that's in that room with you has also paid for that ticket. At that point, you still have to build something on your own to show that you have what it takes. You have the motivation to go out of your way and build something off the skin of your own back. You're not just going to pay for the degree, learn what you get told to learn, and then walk in a door and expect to get handed a job. So even if you don't study at uni, you still are going to need to build projects most of the time. And as someone who's been fairly heavily involved in the grad program at SEEK, most of the candidates that we hire through have projects that they've worked on in their own time.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Eventually you're going to end up in similar kind of situation. How you came to that point or how long it take you after some point is irrelevant.
So we've all talked a little bit, quite a bit, about how we all got started. It's been really interesting, but I'm curious, for any of us, if we could go back and do it again, how would we do it? Would we do it any differently?
It's hard to say. Look, in hindsight, if I could, maybe I'd look into crypto stuff earlier, and some of those, maybe learning AI when that kind of came out, all of those kind of newer stuff. But genuinely, my career pathway, I don't think there was too much, and I was lucky enough to not get very many coding tests when I was starting out as well, which I think helped.
Yeah, I think if I could do it again, I don't think that I would change anything. I think similar. I would just do it sooner.
Yeah.
I feel like for me it was not knowing what it is that I wanted to do, what career I was going to be happy with, and not committing to anything. Like I don't want to be 40 going, I hate being an accountant, what have I done with my life? And that was the only thing that held me back more than anything. I feel like if I could go back, I would just start sooner. But even as I say that, I always tell people that as much as the challenges that I faced before getting into software dev, because the GFC and global financial crisis and everything else, it was pretty rough in tech, like working 6-month contracts, working 3 jobs at once, doing like pizza delivery while also working in IT, that kind of thing. Now that I'm in software dev, it's so cushy and so comfortable by comparison to what it used to be like. I feel like I should have done it sooner. But if I didn't do those jobs and I didn't work for sort of 10 years or whatever before I went to uni, I wouldn't have been as dedicated at uni. I wouldn't have been as focused. I would have cared more about hanging out with people. Maybe I wouldn't have gotten as good grades. I wouldn't have gotten the role that I have at SEEK now. So for me, like maybe I would have done it sooner, but I wouldn't change anything if I could go back.
I would have saved up some time, I would say, because lack of information led me to like doing the master's degree, and of course I gained different skills. But like you said, the MIT stuff is free now, so maybe I would have saved some money. But on the other side, given different timelines, I would say that I would have hung on to my hardware background a bit more, because nowadays you see like these self-driving cars and things like that. So there's like that perfect harmony between software and hardware, which I feel like now I understand the software a bit more, the hardware stuff not as much. So that's what I would probably change.
Yeah, I mean, if you could, I was thinking about that as if I could go back in time, but if I could go back to 18 today, would I do anything differently? I mean, I still feel like the degree is just such especially in Australia, because you can get HECS, which is basically you don't pay for your degree until after, you don't pay interest, you just pay back the debt, basically. I feel like with access to something like that, it's hard to say no, but I would have built more stuff. I would have, with access to YouTube and information now, and having a home computer that's mine and not shared with 7 siblings, that kind of thing, I would probably be building more stuff if I was 18 now with access to the information that people have access to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like above all else, that's probably the most significant thing I think people can do to give themselves a leg up getting into the industry, give themselves the knowledge that they need. Because even like you said before, I was in the same boat when I finished my degree. I didn't feel like I was employable. Like I knew a bunch of stuff compared to someone who didn't have a degree. I knew a bunch of stuff. But someone who spent a year like Will, just dedicated and learning, was far more employable than me when I finished my degree. I needed to get into a grad program to like get that 6 months to 1 year of like leg up and help to become an actual developer. And if you just do a degree and get to the end and you haven't built anything in your own free time, you're going to feel that. You're going to feel, oh, this degree is not a key to a job. It's just it's a key into a room with everyone else who's got the same key.
Yeah, one thing that really helped me when I was learning was not just learning how to make a website, but like how does JavaScript work? What are the ins and outs of the language? Like I feel like that really helped me understand what I'm making, not just I can make it, because I think sometimes that's surface level knowledge and like kind of deeper knowledge can definitely distinguish like who is a lot more capable of making things, kind of like between like junior developers. You can kind of get an idea of who understands these things and who's just kind of following what Stack Overflow says.
Yeah, like let's say you're hiring someone because there's this like line of projects that you want to get done. And if this person comes along, let's say React, and he can get productive really quickly, that's one way of thinking why someone would get hired. Versus I want to think long term, then companies usually tend to invest like one side or the other, right?
Yeah, that's true. Like sometimes it's just unfortunate. Like the company's not in a position to hire someone that they want to invest in to grow. They need someone who can jump in and get the work done right now. So you might be the right candidate at that same company in the same interview for a role 6 months from now, or you might not be. Just depends on what they need. It's a good point, because a lot of people would be disheartened by going to 15 interviews and keep getting knocked back, and there's so many factors.
But either way, there's one thing that's always increasing. That's like number of years of experience in your resume, and you can't buy that.
Yep.
Did you guys always want to do programming or something tech related? I know Seamus, you said you first did game development, but I'd still say that's kind of like have you always wanted to kind of fall into that sort of path? some sort of development?
Yeah, I think very early on, I was just right about the right age for like video games to be like a really big deal, because like home consoles were getting, N64, like PlayStation 2, like this is crazy.
Yeah, I want to make Mario 78.
Yeah, I want to make Mario 128. Yeah, 100%. So for me, I was actually saying this to Rahul before we were recording. I was right around that age where getting into tech stuff was still kind of nerdy, but it was kind of cool at the same time. Like all the skaters and the sport people were getting into like playing Call of Duty and playing like 007 GoldenEye on the N64, that kind of thing. So for me, I liked tech and I wasn't shunned away from it. So even at like 16, 17, I was rebuilding the family computer to add more RAM to play, World of Warcraft, that kind of thing. So I knew that I had an interest in tech, and I just remembered I went to an interview the week after high school ended for a role as like a business admin, just pushing paper around, filling out forms, that kind of thing. And in the interview, she'd said, "Look, I'm happy to put you forward for this role, but we have this traineeship in IT. It'll be at a high school fixing computers." I'm like, "Well, I do that for fun on the weekend. I would much rather get paid to do that on the weekend." And that got me a Cert 3 in IT.
That's fantastic.
And then it was like one IT support job to the next, until I ended up at a big Suncorp, Telstra, couple of big companies doing tech support. And then my boss at the time was like, "You should go get a degree." And then that's how I sort of just shifted into software dev. Software dev was always like, I wanted to learn how to do it to build cool things at home. Like we built, in Visual Basic in high school, we built a tournament ladder board for Halo, because we played like Halo LANs. Everyone would bring their Xbox over and we'd all connect them, and we'd play like 16-player Xbox 360 Halo LANs at home. And so we built a little Visual Basic tournament ladder. We would just put everybody's names in, and it would spit out a little Halo background with, as the matches went on, who was laddering up against each other. So I knew that I was interested in learning software to build cool things at home, but never thought about it as a career, because it always seemed like computer science was just so far ahead of where I was at.
Yeah, I think in my case, what happened was it was not planned. In school or as a kid, I wanted to do everything except study, right? I guess a lot of people can relate to that.
I can relate with that.
Yeah, so computers was also in the fun category. It was never in the study category. So if someone asked me, "Hey, you want to play cricket?" I say, "Yep." Mm-hmm. "Do you want to solve some algorithms and things like that on a piece of paper?" At that point, I would have said, "No, thanks." Mm-hmm. But as I understood that I like building things that people can play with, interact with, and at times even solve their day-to-day problems, that's what gave me joy. So once that hit, that's when I decided, yeah, this is good for me. Like I said, when I was dumping C code in my classes in C++ and thinking it's object-oriented or whatever, I was like, I can't be doing this.
Yeah, it's such an interesting tech. I definitely feel like the third leg in the room, because I hated tech when I was younger.
Which is great though, right? Because it's, everyone's got their own things that they enjoy about what we do.
Yeah, and I think that became, because I didn't have a computer until, much, much later. I didn't have internet. I had to go to the library to do all my like high school stuff and homework and printing and everything. Yeah, we just didn't have any of that at home. And so, I don't know, I just never enjoyed it. And yeah, even in high school, or maybe it was primary school. No, it was high school. Yeah, we did like the IT class and yeah, Visual Basics. I think I only chose it because I heard the teacher was like really chill and didn't care. So I did it. Yeah, it certainly wasn't my favorite subject. But but coming, kind of maybe thinking back, like I was always interested in like optimizing Windows, trying like going into the settings. I think it was kind of in me, but I just never really thought I'd make it a job. The only reason I thought I'd make it a job was because I wanted to fund my acting career. I was like, I'm probably, look, realistically, I'm not going to be an actor. It doesn't work for everyone, so I should find a backup. And yeah, I was like, well, let's see what we find. And yeah, I just, a company that I worked for were trying to revamp their website, and the developer they were working with, they weren't getting along with very well. And I was like, maybe I can give it a shot. It was like this .NET website. I had no idea what was going on. But I just was like, let me try.
It's funny that we all have, had different ideas for our lives, and we all end up here. And it sounds like none of us regret it. Like we're all pretty happy where we are now.
No, I agree. I wouldn't change it. Look, if I could change it and I knew I could become an actor, I would. Yeah, because obviously that's still my passion. But I think I'm lucky to, like, particularly in tech and depending on the company you work for, you kind of still get those opportunities. I mean, even just doing this podcast is a creative outlet, so I can still do my job and even do this as a part of my job as well. It's really exciting.
100%. It's funny that you say that. I went to an acting college, actually.
Really?
Like outside of school, yeah. I used to act in plays and musicals and stuff like that. Yeah. I was in the same boat. I was like, I want to be an actor. And my dad was like, get a real job.
Yeah.
So I was like, I guess I'll, I don't know, get into IT.
Yeah. I mean, acting's a real. It's just tough. There's like even more competition sometimes than IT. It's hard. It's really hard.
Yep. Another thing that we've got to deal with in tech constantly, feels like a never-ending battle, is how to deal with information overload. You know, constantly learning. There's always new packages, new tech coming out. I'm really curious to hear how each of us handle that constant onslaught of information.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly try to subscribe to emails. I find like if I want the information to come to me. So yeah, I certainly have like software and like React newsletter digests and just JavaScript and just I think I've also got like a tech leadership email that I get. Yeah, I get maybe 3 or 4 emails a week just on that sort of stuff, and I certainly don't read them all. But they usually have all the latest info of new packages, new updates to TypeScript and all that stuff. I feel like that's the easiest way that I can still do my job, and then like I block out an hour every week to just kind of go through those and just read the things that interest me. So I just let them come, and then I clear them out every 6 months. If I haven't looked at these newsletters, I'll just delete them because the information is probably by then maybe outdated.
Yeah. That's interesting. I think that's probably a pretty decent approach to it, kind of streamlined and simple. I know people that have RSS feeds, so they'll have like Twitter, email, have all these different sources that are sending out their weekly, information bites, and so they'll just have an RSS feed, so they've got one place to get it all. I've never bothered to like go through the process of setting anything up like that. I'm just like, if I find a thing that's email related, I'll subscribe. If it's a Twitter feed I like, I'll subscribe. If it's whatever, any platform that I'm on, and I kind of just bounce back and forth between the different platforms. And for this month, I feel like I'm getting good information from this source, and the algorithm feeds it to me, and I get it until I get bored of that person and go somewhere else. I've never really curated my knowledge. I learn as needed. A lot of the time.
Yeah, but on the job, I think I also just learn like something new will come up, and I'll be like, oh, how do I do that?
Yeah, I think in my case, how it started versus how I learned today, it's completely different. So back in the day, you would either while walking in some bookstore, you'll say, what's this JavaScript thing? I'll pick up the book and maybe read it. I can't read anything page cover to cover. Mm-hmm. So
yeah.
I would like read a couple of chapters and then like try something out, and that's how I would learn. Or you would have someone experienced or smarter say, there's this thing called JavaScript, and then it lets you click buttons, and then this thing shows up at the bottom. And I was like, you could do that? I say, yeah. And then I would figure out how to do that. So that's how it used to be. Now the way I do it is I'll follow some people. So I'll follow either someone who gives like a newsletter, like you said, but maybe on Twitter, because that's where I am most of the time. And
do we still call it Twitter?
I just think the same thing. It's got to be called X, right?
Yeah, X now.
and then once I like the topic, I'll read an article or two, and if it piques my interest, then I'll start going deeper. But similar problem, but posed differently in a professional setting, is like, let's say I want to build something, and I'll do a little bit of research, and I'll get 6 options by Googling or asking ChatGPT or things like that. And then I'll probably very superficially read about all of them. So kind of going from superficial and then trying to get the job done. And if it really still sticks with me interest-wise, then I'll go deeper.
Yeah, interesting. I think I'm about the same there. I do. Yeah, I think when I used to work in PHP, But now it just never stuck with me. It just never, I don't know, JavaScript is always something that just I felt like I understood a little bit more. Weirdly enough, particularly back in the day, it was certainly not, it was just not very well put together.
And sometimes it's like the second pass. Like I can say Clojure, for example. I looked at Clojure code for the first time. I was like, it's just like a bunch of parentheses. I don't know what this is. And then tried it for a little bit and then gave up. Then picked it up again 2 years later and it started making sense. So sometimes when you touch a technology in what point of mindset or career you are, that also helps you pick up things. That has been my experience.
For the last 5 years, I've had pinned on my browser a software development career learning pathway visualization. I can't remember the word, but it's basically sort of two things that I wanted to say. One is that when a topic is sort of like a fundamental, not fundamental as in everybody needs to know it, but it's so widely reported or widely purported within the industry as being something you should learn. DDD, for example.
Yeah.
If it's a topic like
domain-driven design,
domain-driven design, business-driven design, test-driven design, all these different methodologies, right, that are like agnostic to technology. It's an ideology. It's a way of thinking. Those sorts of topics, I'll get the textbook because I want to have that textbook at home. I want to read the original source that not everyone else's interpretation of the original book, that kind of thing. So for like OO patterns, I've recently been reading through that book. Clean code, clean architecture, those kinds of things. These strong technology agnostic ideas, I would usually prefer to read a book, even though similar to Rahul, I struggle to read a book cover to cover, so I'll just chip away at it a little bit at a time. But I think lately, for the vast majority of stuff I want to learn, if it's specific to a technology or it's not, like I said, agnostic, it's not like a fundamental, I much prefer like TikTok videos and just YouTube shorts. I love just scrolling through and letting the algorithm be like, hey, check out this cool new thing you can do in TypeScript 18. And then it's sort of like inspiration to explore new things without me having to like dive into a technical doc or read the latest patch notes. It's just like, oh, look, a video of a dog. Oh, look, cool sports car. Oh, look, here's this thing you can do in TypeScript. And I just love getting tech information that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And like as you progress in your career, you end up reading stuff that's technical, but not technical at the same time. One example is like, how do you build tech roadmaps? How do you get buy-in from people to start executing on those tech roadmaps? So you need that technical aspect to define that thing. But then I had to learn by reading some books or like listening to some books on how to present ideas to non-technical people, because I think that's one skill that you eventually have to work on, because not everyone's going to care about latency if you only say latency. But if you say the user has to wait on the page for that second, that clicks harder than, 500 millisecond latency is not acceptable. That's why we need to refactor this. Mm-hmm. So the two statements, even though they mean the same thing, flies differently with different people.
Are there any platforms you just wouldn't touch, or like anything where you're like, no, I don't want to go there and learn my stuff?
Anything you have to pay for.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like it's such a hard sell to pay for a course. Like we said right early in the start, I feel like if you're paying for that course, you're paying for the structure, you're paying for like the consequence of your money being wasted, you're paying for like a certificate. But you can get a certificate from free websites.
Yeah. Maybe sometimes you're also paying for the teacher. I will say like, you can get good courses by someone who can teach you really well. And I think you're paying for the teacher some of the time as well, which I think is very important. Having someone who can really break down tough topics and explain it really well is, look, if the only way you can get to them is by paying, then
I always think of those courses as being pre-recorded. Like the lecturer isn't really, you're not interacting with them, or maybe there's like a chat group that you've got access to for half an hour or something like that. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm more thinking of like those websites where you, you go and they have like one, like the complete React course or something like that. And it's just, obviously it's all pre-recorded, but I think, if they put it together very well, and sometimes they're worth it. I certainly have paid for them in the past, but looking back, I I don't know if I needed to either. Like I certainly could have got my information in free areas. And I think nowadays if I'm recommending people to learn TypeScript or JavaScript, there's certainly free courses and free websites, even free books online that are just that's going to kick off your pathway a lot in a more accessible fashion than paying for something, I think.
I think when I have bought a course or bought a book, I've paid special attention towards who the authors are or who the presenters
definitely.
are. Not necessarily that they should be the creators of that technology or things like that, but their background helps me because they kind of help me weed out all the not so accurate information at times. So you can get 6 articles that says, this is how you set up ESLint, and all 6 are different. If I'm starting in the beginning of my career, I'm going to be super confused. So either I have to try all 6 and which one works or which one does not work, or I pick someone who's like a good background. I will research their like GitHub profiles, what projects they have been working on. Like one example is like there's a teacher who teaches Vim, and he's also like half the Vim ecosystem. He owns all the packages. So if you're learning from that guy, probably he'll help you weed out a lot of, I don't want to say nonsense, but a lot of stuff that isn't quite accurate and comes with a lot of like foot in the mouth kind of thing, or like the gun meeting or the bullet meeting your foot kind of situations.
That's a really good point. I have become not immune, but like less aware of the challenge of filtering information because we've been dealing with it for so long now. When I know that there is going to be 10 different answers to the same problem that are all going to be slightly different, but in between all of them is the truth. And part of it is just reading the docs and understanding how to do the thing. But for a lot of people starting out, you find a tutorial and you go, cool, it works. I did it. It works. And then that's how you do it. And you don't know any other way to do it. And that's a really hard thing to deal with when you're learning by yourself without a lecturer or someone on a video who can explain, because you reading a textbook is going to give you very different outcomes than someone explaining the information in the textbook.
Yeah. I'm usually scared of the it depends follow-up. Yeah, this is true, but it depends. So you can do like dot operator, and then it copies the object or whatever, unless you want to perform on JavaScript.
Yeah. Yeah. I would like to, I think it might be good to kind of maybe plug a couple of resources you guys find useful. For me, I find javascript.info is a really good source for learning JavaScript. It's essentially a book, but it's all online. It's all free, and it goes into the basics of JavaScript and also some like pretty detailed stuff. Sometimes I even go into that just to like learn about. I think I learned about proxies from here as well, but it's very well put together. So if you want to just learn into JavaScript, it'll take a while to get through it, but it has everything on there. So that's probably my go-to website, and I think the other one was Code Academy. I think that one's free as well, right?
Code Academy, freecodecamp.org is one that I would highly recommend. I've been to some talks from his name eludes me now, and that was the whole point. Yeah, he's a very nice guy. Freecodecamp.org's this fantastic online site that gives you certificates, and it's very structured, so you can do from hello world, like very, very intro stuff, simple, primitive, operations, that kind of thing, all the way up to advanced, like React stuff. And you get certificates the whole way along. And I know people who have gotten employment at large web tech companies like SEEK with just freecodecamp.org certificates.
It's amazing.
In my case, I think I would say a couple of people on YouTube that make great learning content. Brad Traversy, if you just look him up on YouTube, he's pretty good. Other person, I think he is more front-end specific. His name is Jack Harrington. He makes some really good videos. I think he works at PayPal or one of those big companies, and he's a principal engineer. You can look him up on LinkedIn and things like that. So there's a little bit of trust factor in there. Seems like he knows what he's doing. And who can forget w3schools.com?
Yes.
That used to be my homepage. How do you center a div, Flexbox?
Yeah. I would also recommend Code Wars for people who sort of already have a little bit of programming knowledge, but just need just 15-minute challenges every day just to refine, grow maybe a specific language, that kind of thing. Code Wars is really good because it's just a website of hundreds and thousands of very bite-sized, 15-line challenges. You pick the language that you want to solve the problem in, and then you write a solution. And once you've submitted a solution, you can look at everyone else's solution. So it's a really good way of seeing how other people would solve the same problem, which is one of the biggest benefits of working in an organization and getting to collaborate is learning from other people. And that's why I always recommend Code Wars.
Have any of you tried Advent of Code?
That's the Christmas calendar code thing, right?
That's right.
Yep.
So
No, what is that?
So it's basically, I think, the month of December. Every day you get a problem to solve, and it gets harder and harder. And it's not tied to, I think, any technology. It basically starts off with problems like how do you process this string or pass a string, and then starts getting complicated. But they usually do it in a very fun way. So their problems will sound like there are 6 elves. They go to Santa. They want to do something, and then this is the problem that they have, and they want you to do this, and this is the problem set, and you fix it, and then there are people submitting solutions, so you can compare and learn. And hey, I didn't know you could do this in JavaScript. Maybe your code is in Python, and you can kind of see how you solve the same problem in different problems or different programming languages and things. It's pretty fun.
That's very
if you
cool.
don't have much to do in December.
Yeah, actually, those also on Code Wars, right? There was another website I used that was similar. That was essentially that they had just little code challenges. Yeah, there was just it was just Edibit. It's a free and they just a bunch of like interactive challenges. I did it to just kind of improve some of my algorithm stuff. They had like different categories you could choose from, and I was like, I'm lacking in this. I want to get better, and yeah, it's really cool to see. Also, even just like doing a solution and seeing other people's solutions really helped me inform like, wow, that's a way better way of doing this. I learned a lot doing that. I actually highly recommend that. That was a good suggestion.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest benefit I found from it was seeing other people's solutions.
Yeah, that's why I loved Advent of Code, especially when I was in uni, because in December, most kids would go home or whatever. There's no class in December. So I think that was a good use of time.
There you go. Sounds like the advice is get yourself a good Code Kata website to just micro-challenge yourself on a day-to-day basis. I feel like it's been really good, rounded conversation. We've all got very different backgrounds. I'm sort of like in between the both of you. But I feel like none of us really had like, I would change this drastically, or I think that was a bad pathway. So I feel like it's very, very positive to know that all of us came from very different backgrounds to get into the industry, but wouldn't change anything. So it's hope for everyone is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think everyone's journey is their own, and I think just getting into software engineering or whatever it is you end up, I think it's yours to own. I
think that's the beauty of our industry. I feel you can come from a physics background, get a job in software. If you come from a economics background, you can maybe get a job in a fintech company.
I've even seen designers go from design to wanting to go into code, just like just starting from design, then learning basic HTML and just loving it.
I knew someone who was a truck driver and did a summer course, a 3-month course over, December, January, Feb, whatever, got their first job at Xero, and then started a conference and now runs like tech conferences.
It's amazing.
So yeah, no degree, just a 3-month course, was a truck driver, just doing the course in between driving around the country. So yeah, you hear those stories all the time. It's fantastic. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. Hope that it's been informing for you and that you've had some inspiration and maybe some new ideas about platforms that you could use to learn and maybe some different pathways for yourself to follow in the future. Thanks, Will and Rahul. It's been really good.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Goodbye.
Cheers.